And keep on loving you. It's coming up to 3:10, and hoping that you're feeling reasonable this afternoon. There's a bit of sunshine, a bit of warmth around, enough to put a spring in your step. But it's quite possible you're sat there and nothing seems right. A lot of people face difficulties in their minds. Sometimes a lovely summer's day can make it all seem much worse. And how do you deal with that? Different people find different ways, hopefully, to deal with it. Art may be a solution. And I'm fascinated to hear the story of Chris Ellis, who's here with a story to share with you. Hello, Chris. Hi. Thanks for coming in. And also Martin Orrell, who's here from the University of Nottingham and with the Institute of Mental Health at the University of Nottingham. You work for them. Is it easy to categorise different types of states of mental problem? Is something like schizophrenia separate from something like a depression, or are they all the same sort of thing but just manifesting in different ways? First of all, I just want to try and see who we're addressing here with this conversation this afternoon.
Well, I think there's a wide variety of different kind of mental difficulties people can have, and so yes, there are some very different diagnoses, but for example, people with schizophrenia can get depression during that, and of course depression is very common, and mental health problems are very common in the population overall, and it's rising, I think, particularly in the younger generation. So what our work is about doing pioneering research and education, improving mental health, but also on a wider scale, we're also interested in things that we can do working with the local community and people who've had mental health difficulties through aspects of the arts, such as community singing and such as our art exhibition.
Mm-hmm. And it is art that I want to focus on this afternoon, and how that can help. And with a story, as I say, to share on this issue is Chris Ellis. Interesting element to your story is that for a good few years nobody had really given you a reason as to why you felt like you felt. It was when you were in your 40s that something happened. What did you learn when you were 40?
Well, I was diagnosed 3 years ago when I was 40 with autism spectrum disorder. Basically, a psychologist realised that this was the underlying reason for the anxiety and depression that I'd struggled with in the past. Basically, autism isn't actually a mental health condition, but anxiety is something that the world causes because of the way autistic people cope with the world. The world is very noisy. I'm very sensitive to sound, so everything is louder for me. So that's why I much prefer being out in the countryside to being in a city. Social overload is quite a struggle as well. So again, I like a lot of time by myself, or just me and my partner and the cat. Getting some peace and quiet, and being in my spare room making art is another good way of escaping from some of the stress that the daily life can throw at me. So,
when somebody actually told you this diagnosis, I imagine it was Chris. Of course, being somebody on the autism spectrum, was it like did you suddenly think, oh, that's what it is? Was it a revelation, or did you kind of know anyway?
No, I had absolutely no idea. I'd never ever considered it at all. When the psychologist said that, I was like, no way. Mainly because of the stereotypical image of autistic people you see on the telly. I'm like, I'm not like them. But when a year later I had to wait a whole year for the actual official assessment, and I did lots of research and was like, I'm very sensitive to sound. Yes, socialising is very stressful. I really don't like talking to people very much, and I don't like being in groups of people, and all this sort of other things that are to do with it. So
well, clearly something pretty amazing has happened, because you are on BBC Radio Nottingham having a bit of a natter with us, which is fantastic. And art does play a story in this, and for you it was sort of a pattern that you saw, that you realised seeing that shape, seeing that pattern made you feel calmer.
Yeah, well, I've always done art, but my big passion earlier was horticulture, so that won. But now, because I had a back injury, I've had to give up that career. So actually art has now become kind of more a relaxation tool than gardening ever used to be. But last year I sort of noticed car wheels I was quite stressed because of a job I was doing, and it was this one that I saw first of all.
Okay,
it's a really unusual wheel shape.
Just showing me a photograph here. So 5 spokes, but each spoke is, I don't know how you would begin to describe that really, but almost diamond shaped, I suppose, with quite an ornate. I'm not very good at description.
It's okay.
but that was the shape that caught your eye.
That was the first one,
yeah.
and then I started.
Do you know what car that was off?
It was off an American car. I
Yeah.
don't know the make.
Yeah.
But I just started noticing all these wonderful patterns, and because I love flower shapes and they have radial symmetry as well, they remind me a lot of flowers. And then I suddenly started thinking of ways I can make patterns, because being autistic, I love detail. And so to me, to actually do this kind of art is more relaxing than trying to do realistic painting, which I used to do and got very stressed because it wasn't how I wanted it to turn out. But this, I have total control. I can cut the photographs up, make the collages, just play around, make shapes that I like. Based on, I start with the wheel piece that I really fell in love with, and then it's like a 5-point symmetry coming out from it, and I just develop it and play around with the different shapes until I like what I've done and start sticking bits down, really. So
we'll talk some more about that particular piece, the techniques you've used, and also the wide range. I'm interested to hear from Martin, the sort of different artistic expressions that people have got, because I've seen a collection of work from people in these different situations, and there's no way of saying it all looks like this. I mean, it is art from A to Z, isn't it? So talk about that in a couple of minutes on BBC Radio Nottingham after Bobby V.
They say that you're a runaround lover.
The night has 1,000 eyes from Bobby V. Now on BBC Radio Nottingham, you're hearing from Chris Ellis and Martin Orrell. Chris was explaining more about how having been diagnosed with autism, being on the autism spectrum, that art had helped to sort of come to terms with it, I suppose, or bring relief. Well, what does art actually do? Do you find yourself in a calmer state or in a different place? What happens?
Basically, if I'm focusing on the art, I can try to stop worrying about things, because a lot of life is full of anxiety. If I've had a really busy, noisy day or talking a lot, my head is very full, and quite often it's very chaotic. So having the control over the art and sitting in my spare room, listening to my favourite music, the cat asleep next to me, doing what I want with my patterns, it's really soothing, and it's sort of just my time, and the rest of the world doesn't exist, and I can just relax.
What I now find very interesting is what you showed, the work that you've done recently, this idea of basing on a car wheel and then the symmetry of that, and you can develop it out. So you've got 5 spokes on the car wheel, and each of those 5 spokes leads onto another pattern, and thus it could go on forever. Contrast that with this painting, which you've just shown me on your phone, which you did before the diagnosis, and I'm going to bring Martin in here. I'm not sure if you've seen this picture, Martin Orrell from the University of Nottingham, the Institute of Mental Health. Look at the difference. Look, before somebody told her, as if you're not here, Chris, I do apologise, but before it was explained what was going on, it was that sort of painting, which is a beautiful woodland, but with a sort of light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. Dare I say, a slightly unresolved picture, perhaps.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful picture, but like you say, it's like the light's quite a long way off.
Yeah.
You can get to it, but it's how do you get there? Yeah.
And now what you're doing is bold in your face. It's like this is the real me, I think, somehow, what you're doing there, whereas this was an attempt to be something you're not.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I think so.
I mean,
yeah.
the last thing in the world you want is a Radio Nottingham presenter trying to analyse and discuss your art, but I genuinely find it fascinating. And Martin, can you explain from your sort of academic perspective why art works for people to bring them comfort and indeed some understanding of their place?
Well, I think, firstly, I did want to, I suppose, thank all the artists in the exhibition, which is a fantastic exhibition, which we've done in collaboration with City Arts and running till the end of September. And I think the thing is we place a lot of reliance on words to express ourselves. And for some people, that's not always the best way of doing it, because I think art can reach the parts that other kind of experiences and things can't reach. So it's a mixture of being able to express yourself, also to have a really inspirational way of spending your time with something that you can be really proud of as a result. And there's a lot of focus, rightly so, on kind of treatment for mental health problems, but also things like art and other aspects of the arts, like, for example, singing and drama, can actually benefit people in a wide range of ways. And we're just wanting to acknowledge that it's not just about treatments, but also being able to link in with arts and cultures is really very valuable and very important. And it's part of being able to have a more fulfilling, worthwhile life. And I think if you look at the range of art and the quality art we've had on display, which runs from kind of surrealism to a collage made up of kind of leaflets and notes from prescriptions and things, I think it's incredible, the quality and the diversity of what we've got. So I'm very grateful for that.
So the exhibition is running until the end of September, I think. Where will people be able to see these pictures then?
Well, this is at the Institute of Mental Health, which is in the Jubilee Park of the Nottingham University campus, and it's on Triumph Road. So you can look up Triumph Road, and people are welcome to come. We'd really value people coming in and enjoying the art, and also reading about what the artists have written themselves to really get a better understanding of kind of experiences, and maybe hopefully it'll inspire other people to do art and to think of this as a really important part of their lives.
Christian, is this the first time your work's been publicly displayed?
I did have some work in the same exhibition last year and the year before, actually.
Right.
So
you're an old hand now at this
point.
No. do you go and have a look yourself when it's up on display?
Yes, yeah, I just want to see the other art, because when you see it in a booklet, you don't get the same effect as when it's on the wall, so definitely.
Yeah. The feeling you get there when you see your work amongst others, pride, fear?
A bit of both, but it's more disbelief in a way that actually I did that, really. So, yeah.
One thing I suppose people might think, and me included, is that when you go through life, you meet people who are creative, who are artistic in all sorts of different ways, and you see that a different way of thinking is sometimes necessary or a bonus to people who are in creative industries. Where do you feel that argument stacks up, Chris? First of all, did you see there's, if you like, an advantage in your autism that allows you to produce this, or do you wish you didn't have the autism and you wouldn't want to produce the art? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's a very difficult thing to ask.
Very, very hypothetical, obviously.
Ask me on a bad day when I've had a really stressful experience and I wouldn't want to be autistic, but it has so many benefits. Being sensory aware, I get to hear birdsong that other people can't hear. I see details that people miss, interesting patterns that other people just walk past. So the world is a very different sort of place, the way I'm looking at it. I wish at times it was a quieter world, but that just seems to be the way it is. I've got earplugs.
And my sort of description there of creative minds, and sometimes the difficulties go with them are very crude stereotyping, I know, Professor Orrell, but is there something that says sometimes a brain that is not working in a way the same as most others is quite a good thing to have? I can't find a way of phrasing that question particularly well, but
I think so many of us have hidden talents, and as Chris was saying, sometimes actually people have special talents in an area which may relate to some other difficulty that they've got, and this is in a way, like you're saying, it's kind of trying to get a balance between the difficulties you have, but also some of the extra talents that you have which are associated with it. So I guess it's about valuing diversity in people and valuing the fact that we're all different and we all bring unique things, and art is a great way of being able to illustrate that and showing the diversity of art coming from a great, wonderful creativity and imagination and artistic ability.
Is it, though, a question of brains being wired differently? That some brains are wired for not necessarily creativity, but brilliant at organising, and other brains are wired for being creative but rubbish at organising?
Well, I think I think to some extent people find that they have skills and expertise in certain areas and less so in others. I was really awful at sport at school, and I think that's possibly something to do with coordination.
You should have seen me with the hula hoop. You would have seen a similar sort of thing. So I guess it's one of those fields where there's no simple answer, more research, and this sort of way of finding people's talents and creativity is very encouraging and supportive for people.
Absolutely, and it's valuing people as individuals with bringing different things to the table. Thank you.
Well, the Institute of Mental Health at the University of Nottingham's Jubilee campus is where you'll see this exhibition of art from around the country, all sorts of different stories leading, and as well as the works of art, you will see some writing from the artists so you can understand their particular perspective. Chris, thank you so much for coming in with your work, and Wheelflake 3, I think, is the name of the piece that you've got on display, and very good luck with that, and fascinating. Hoping maybe some people listening to this will have thought, actually, maybe, perhaps I should try expressing myself in a slightly different way. Who knows? It's 28 minutes past 3 now.